Guys, today we are talking about lesson 2 in unit 5. We're on our plant unit, and we're going to talk about the parts of the plant today. So just basic plant biology, you need to know that they are divided into 2 different parts. So those used for sexual reproduction or seed production, and vegetative parts. So the flower buds, the flowers, the fruit, and the seeds, those are all considered for sexual reproduction. The leaves, roots, leaf, buds, and stems, those are all the vegetative portion of the plant. So you can see how it's 2 separate structures. So these may be used for some types of asexual plant reproduction, such as plant cuttings. And that's where you don't need a female and a male plant. They can reproduce on their own. A good example would be succulents. So these are like in the cacti family, plants that really are low maintenance and low water. So you can take just a piece of that plant and put it in the ground and it will grow. A good example of this is I have a cactus that fell off of a pot and landed in my driveway of rock, and it is thriving. Okay, just from that one piece falling, and I never picked it up. So that is an example of asexual plant reproduction. So let's go into the parts. The parts of the stem. So stems are structures that support the buds and the leaves. Obviously, the stem is the long part that we think of in a plant. That's kind of the structure, the skeleton of the plant. Okay, it's really important. It helps carry water, mineral, and sugars throughout the plant. So there's a good picture right there of the parts of the plant. You've got your stem, you've got the flower. Remember, even though this is a bell pepper, it is a fruit because it's got seeds and it stems from that flower. See? You've got leaves, the stem, and roots. So there's 2 distinct types of plants, and you need to know these. In the world of agriculture, these terms are really important. So there's monocots and dicot. So mono means one. Remember? So in a monocot, the vascular system is positioned in multiple bundles together in the plant's stem. And dicot, they're separate stems, 2, multiple. Vascular system forms separate rings. So they have a xylem and a phloem. And so the phloem is the outer ring inside the stem, and the xylem is going to be an inner ring. So there's 2 circles in the stem. Whenever you open it, you'll be able to see this. So some herbicides or chemicals designed to kill unwanted plants are formulated only for monocots or dicots. But basically the xylem and the phloem, they are really important. They are responsible for taking minerals and sugars and all of that up and down the stem. So it says to qualify as stem tissue, the stem must have buds or leaves. Most plant stems are above the ground, but there are some below the ground. Think of any plants that are grown in bulbs. So bulbs they look like little root balls, basically. And so you plant them underneath the ground. No stem is showing. You plant them pretty deep in the ground in the winter, and then they will come up in the spring. So these are like tulips, daffodils. All of these have below ground stems that are going to shoot up in the spring. Irises, potatoes are a good example of these as well. Asparagus, anything that's going to stem like that out of the ground, it's the stem. They grow from modified stems. Plants that grow from these sorts of modified stems reproduce through those stems rather than seeds in some cases. So think about potatoes. They keep going, okay, on like a vine on a stem. So plant life cycles, we classify plants by the number of growing seasons needed to complete a life cycle. So you may see on the back of a seed packet, it's going to say, or if you buy a plant, it's going to say this is an annual, this is a biennial, or a perennial. So an annual means that it's going to live its entire life cycle in 1 year, basically, in one growing season. And then it's going to die. It's not going to come back. Okay, so if you are looking for a plant that's only going to perform once, that's going to be an annual. Okay, so a good example of this would be a lot of flowers are going to be annuals. Okay, like your periwinkles. Okay, those are going to thrive in the summer, and then when it gets cold, they're going to die. A biennial is a plant that starts from seeds and produces structures in the first season, and it's going to last over the winter, and then it'll come back the next year. So it may not bloom for 2 years. Okay, so some food plants are commonly eaten during the first year of a biennial cycle, including carrots, cabbage, and beets. A perennial, this is what you want in your landscape. So these are plants that are going to produce flowers and seeds every single year. Cosmos are really good examples of perennials. There's 2 types. There's herbaceous. They die each year, but they live under the ground, so they're going to keep coming back. The second are woody perennials, and those maintain their top throughout the year. Trees and shrubs are great examples of these. Okay, perennials are raised. Some perennials, they can only be annuals in cooler climates just because they can't survive the winter. So the stem has nodes as well. So nodes, if you look up and down the stem, there's going to be leaves coming off of it. Basically, a node is just what produces the leaf. So then you have the leaves. Okay, the leaf's its main purpose in life is to perform photosynthesis, to collect sunlight and convert that sunlight into glucose, sugar, and food for the plant, right? So that's why leaves are very, very important. This is why leaves for different plants are going to look different in different environments. For example, a plant in the rainforest is going to have really, really large leaves. Think of like elephant ears, big, huge ferns, okay? This is because down low in the rainforest, there's not much sunlight. So they need to be broad so they can capture as much sunlight as they can. Okay? Plants like a cactus or a succulent, they're not going to have really big leaves because they're out in the sunshine. So they're going to have different ones. They have storage leaves that are broad and thick. And then trees have different leaves for different environments as well. So that's really neat how plants change for their environment. And there's a good picture right there that shows the xylem and the phloem. You can see those rings. The inner one, the phloem, the outer one is the xylem, and that's how water and food are transferred up and down that plant. All right, buds. So it says, have you ever noticed rosebuds on a bush or in a bouquet? Those are basically flowers before they bloom, right? They're not very pretty, but you can tell that there's petals in there and that buds are going to perform. So they contain embryonic, not fully developed leaves. They contain a short stem and embryonic flower parts. Many buds require a cold dormant period for proper development, so they can tolerate the cold really well. But if it begins to get warm and the buds develop, they become much more vulnerable. So they're a lot safer when they're all collected. I think I've mentioned it before. I have a floral design business, and so I can tell you, even though they're cut flowers, if you get a flower that is a really beautiful opened up rose, it is not going to last near as long as one that gets shipped to you and it's all closed up. Okay, those that are closed up, they have more life to them, so they're more sturdy. Then you have roots. Okay, roots are typically going to be the lowest part of the plant or cutting. They have a root cap but no nodes. They don't directly produce leaves or flowers. They are the anchor of the plant. So it says in some cases we eat the root, like carrots. That is a taproot. So that's a singular root. A really good example of that. The carrot that we eat is a root. So the functions are to absorb nutrients and moisture, to secure and support the plant in the ground or soil, protect against wind and rain and all of those other erosion factors, provide support for the stem, and to store food for the plant. So there's 3 significant parts of the root. So new cellular growth is going to happen near the top of the root. In the middle, cells access food and water, and cells at the bottom become more specialized to turn into leaves or flowers. And then last we have our flowers. Flowers not only are pretty for the plant, they have strategic purposes. So We love flowers. I love flowers. Again, I've said that I'm a florist part-time. I love the way they smell, how they look, and that's not just for fun. So the function of flowers is for sexual reproduction. So they're really colorful, attractive, and they smell really good to appeal to pollinators. Okay, plants rely on pollinators like birds, bees, butterflies, even deer. If you pick up a dandelion and you blow on it and those seeds go everywhere, you've just pollinated. So, to attract all these pollinators to come and eat their nectar and get that pollen on their legs and then go to another flower and land and transfer the pollen, that's how they reproduce. They need to be as colorful and fragrant as they can. Flowers, they're made up of different parts. Some plants can have only female, some can have only male, and some can have both parts. So they're really unique. So a male part is called the stamen. So the male part of the flower is called the stamen. So the stamen has the pollen. The stamen's easily accessible to pollinators, and it can blow off of a flower to allow pollen to spread on the wind. Flowers with only male parts are called staminate. Stamen, staminate. So the female is a pistil. You can think of like, that girl is such a pistil. Okay. So the pistil is shaped like a bowling pin. Okay, like this. And it's going to contain the stigma, style, and the ovary. The stigma and style contain the ovary. Ovary contains the ovules, and those are going to turn into eggs. And those eventually are going to turn into seed. Okay, so let's just look at those parts really quick. All right, right here you can see that's the bowling pin part. That is going to be the pistil right here. So you can see it contains the stigma. Stigma is where the pollen is going to go into. The style, the stem-like feature, the ovary, and the ovule inside the ovary where the egg is. And that's where that pollen is going to be transferred down here. It's going to travel down and it's going to fertilize that egg in the ovule, and that's where you get a seed or a fruit. And then right here we've got the male part. We've got the stamen. We've got the filament, which is the long pieces. And some, it's easier to see this in some flowers more than others. I encourage all of you to go find a flower and see if you can find these parts. And then the anther, right here, these little parts, that's where the pollen's going to be. Okay. It's out here in the open, easy for the wind to blow the pollen around or a pollinator. All right, so plants with both male and female parts in the same flower, they can self-pollinate or produce seeds without accessing another plant. So that's really neat that they can do. You can cross-pollinate. So that's where we get different varieties. You know, if you have a garden and you plant your zucchini and your squash too close to each other, you may see I've had half squash, half zucchini grown from that plant because of cross-pollination. So then we have fruit. Fruit basically is plant ovary. Take that how you want. That's basically what that is. So the ovary wall is fleshy and thick. Think of like a peach or apple. Okay, the part of the apple we eat is the ovary wall. The seeds are protected. Remember, you've got apple seeds whenever you get to the middle. Okay, seeds also could be outside of the fruit, like strawberries. So those little dots, those are seeds, or corn. Genetically, the seeds represent both parent plants. All other plant parts of the fruit include the genetics of the mother or female plant. So we've got some fun plant facts for you to read there. Earth is home to more than 80,000 edible plants. That is crazy. So 90% of our plant-based foods come from only 30 different types of plants. So that's really crazy. We don't really take advantage of those. Food crops are most often chosen for productivity rather than nutrition. So it's chosen on how well we can grow it rather than how good it is for you sometimes. More than half of all plant species are native to only one country. About 70,000 plant species are used as medicines to manufacture pharmaceuticals. And then we're going to talk about different types of fruits. You've got 3 different levels: simple, aggregate, and multi. So simple, developed from a single ovary. Many fruits are simple fruits, like a tomato, melon, squash, and apple. Okay, think of something that's just one fruit off of the flower.